Hello, and we are live from sunny Las Vegas, Nevada. I am Cyberspesh, otherwise known as Mr. Robert Speciale, and I'm going to be going through our initial video here on this YouTube channel where we're going to be talking about the AP Cybersecurity Exam. We're also going to talk about a little bit about myself so you have some level of confidence that I know what I'm talking about. We're going to go through the course framework a little bit. We're going to talk about the assessment, and then we're going to talk about what this channel is going to provide over the next couple of months. So without further ado, let's get started. First, let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I am an 11-year educator. I'm just finishing my 11th year in the classroom. 7 years of that have been in the world of cybersecurity and computer science. Previous to me being a teacher, I worked in the IT industry for about 14 years or so in a lot of different roles, anywhere from desktop support, server administration, custom application support. I was the antivirus admin, so I was kind of doing cybersecurity before we actually called it cybersecurity. And then I did a bunch of project management in a couple different roles near the end there. I currently teach a CTE, or Career and Technical Ed, cybersecurity education program, and coach a highly competitive cybersecurity club here out in Las Vegas, Nevada. I've been married for almost 23 years with a 22-year-old daughter and 17-year-old boy-girl twins. And just in case anybody asks, yes, my accent is originally from New York. I was born in Queens, grew up in Elmont, New York, which is right on the border of Long Island and New York City. My teams are the New York Yankees, who are doing very well right now, the New York Rangers, who are not, and the New York Jets, who never do well, or at least not in my lifetime consistently. Maybe this year is the year. I always kind of feel like the Jets win the offseason, but they certainly don't ever win the actual regular season, but that's fine. And St. John's basketball, which I have a very deep love for, and I will say that they did really well in the NCAAs this year, but we'll see if they can crack the Elite Eight going into next season. I think some of the pickups they're going to have are going to be really good. And, of course, living in Vegas, I do support the Vegas Golden Knights. I am Star Wars, Star Trek, and Lord of the Rings obsessed, and if ever this YouTube channel happens to take off, I will absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, start a side Lord of the Rings fantasy sci-fi podcast, but that's something for a later date. I don't know if you can tell from the image there in the picture, I have lost almost 40 pounds from when that photo was taken. I was the Cyber.org, one of Cyber.org's Educators of the Year for 2025. So I got to go to Chicago last year, which Cyber.org conference was. This year it's at Reno, Nevada, so I'm just going to drive up there. So yeah, I've lost close to 40 pounds from that picture. I can't believe the difference. I wouldn't even have used that photo, but I knew I was going to be in the video for this, so that's kind of wild. But hey, that's a little bit about me. You can already tell that I like going off track a little bit. I think you're going to have fun with these YouTube videos and hopefully learn a thing or two about cybersecurity and pass the AP exams as we move forward. So let's talk about the AP exam. But first, let's answer a simple question. The heck is cybersecurity? It's a fancy word. It's a word that garners attention. People see that and assume that they know what it means. And I think it's one of those things with cybersecurity can mean different things to different people. Really, it boils down to is that it's a layered strategy to manage risk and protect individuals, organizations, and most importantly, data from adversaries. How do we do that? Well, when you look at the graph here and you look at this little graphic that's on the screen, you have the physical, the network, the device, and the actual data, right? The physical security is good in place. Could be anything from locks, security guards, gates, fences, security cameras, and all that fun stuff. When you are talking about the network, we have all kinds of things like authentication, mechanisms, encryptions. You might have firewalls. You might have network segmentation, where you put different parts of the network in different areas and in a certain way so that it's not easy for someone to get through the technology. You certainly might have data and applications that might have some detection, authentication, anti-malware, maybe firewall software on actual computers as opposed to a firewall where it's a big black box plugged into the network. You certainly also have access controls and things like that. The bottom line is this. Cybersecurity is really about data and protecting data that exists on technology. Right? Data that exists on your iPhone or your iPad or your Android phone or another tablet. It is data that lives on computers, whether it be a Mac, whether it be a regular desktop or fancy PC. data that resides is protected or within an operating system, whether that's Windows or whether that's Linux or Mac OS or iOS on an Apple phone or Android, which is the Google implementation. Protecting not just a system, but a system of computers, networks, and what connects networks, right? All kinds of fun devices like routers and switches and hubs, which you never want to use a hub, and we'll talk about that in a later episode. And all of those are designed to move and send data. And when the original architects of the internet kind of got together and made all this stuff in the late 60s, early 70s, they didn't have security in mind. They didn't know that people were going to use the internet the way that we wound up doing it. And we've been completely, since the creation of the internet, chasing how to perfect deploying security. And you're never going to perfect it. Everything is always hackable. All you can do is set up layers of protection, kind of like how they have this pictured here, to protect data and stall or prevent a hacker from getting at that information, or make it so that it takes so much time that the attacker either gets disenfranchised, potentially get caught, or gives up, or whatever. So you got to look at it that way. Right? The four main topics, or the four main categories, if you will, in the Advanced Placement Cybersecurity Exam are going to be analyze risk, which holds a weight of anywhere from 25 to 40%, where you identify vulnerabilities, evaluate threat likelihood and impact. Then you deal with mitigating risk, meaning implementing protective and deterrent security controls across all layers. Then you have where you detect attacks, you monitor systems, you analyze evidence in the digital world, and you classify ongoing attacks. You can see an attack happening in real time. What do you do about it, right? And then at the end, you collaborate. You work alongside peers. You use AI tools, we're going to talk about that in a bit, to accomplish complex security tasks efficiently. So the first three category areas are really kind of like the base of what makes up what's going to be on the multiple choice, by the way. And then the collaboration part is where you put everything together in the FRQ. More about that in a little bit. But those are the four main, big idea areas that are going to be on this AP exam. Unit 1 is an introduction. You'll see that it has suggested class periods on here. When I made the PowerPoint, that's because I teach an 83-minute block. And not everybody teaches that way. So when I make my pacing guide for this, that's how it shakes out for me. If you're a teacher watching this, this is obviously something that you could change and maneuver. If you're a student watching this, then you can kind of see and gauge what topics are the most important by how much time that you spend in them. So Unit 1 is the introduction. We talk about social engineering, basically public networks, and how AI has affected attacks on networks and attacks on systems and devices. So that's Unit 1, is basically the introduction. Unit 2, we start talking about how do we secure things. What are physical vulnerabilities? What is piggybacking? Piggybacking is a fun one. A lot of people don't know what that might be off the top of their heads. Piggybacking is basically when you might have access to a front door and someone sneaks in and runs in behind you. They might not have access, but you do, but they piggyback behind you. That's what that means. Not a very complicated topic. Surveillance placement. Where do you put cameras? Where do you lock doors? Where are areas where you don't have to secure things as much? Where do you spend your security dollars, in a way, we'd be looking at that. So that's going to be Unit 2. Unit 3, we're going to talk about then securing networks. We're going to talk about segmentation, where you can break your network up into segments or LANs, if you will. Wireless attacks. How come wireless networks can be vulnerable? How do you protect those? How do you get around that? Because a lot of this stuff, too, is you're going to learn how to deploy an attack on a wireless network, because that will inform you then how to protect against those types of attacks. And then we're going to talk about firewalls, and we're going to configure the firewall. What's a firewall, if you might be asking or don't know? Basically, it's just either a device or software that monitors traffic and then follows rules that you set or policies that you set that will then either allow or not allow certain network traffic in. Okay? So then we get to Unit 4, where we're going to be securing devices. Notice we went from physical to network to now the device level, where you're going to have exploits on IoT devices. IoT means Internet of Things. So like your smart thermostat, your smart garage door opener. If anybody's got the freaky thing, I'll never buy one of these, but the refrigerator that tells you, hey, you're low on milk, that freaks me out. But that's an Internet of Things device, right? Those devices are not very secure. And you're going to have to learn how to deal with that if you allow them on your network, or even when you think about protecting the things that you have in your home. So we're going to talk about exploits with those. We're going to talk about the general definition of malware. Mal meaning malicious software. Software that's designed with the intent to break a system or break a space or break a network or break a device or break apps and data. You see there's going to be a common theme here. So we're going to talk about all the different types of malicious software. And then we're going to look at authentication and analyze when you authenticate into a device, or what does it look like? Excuse me. What does it look like? And how do you analyze that to see when someone is doing something hinky, right, for lack of a better term? Then last but not least, we're going to be talking about securing apps and data, which would involve cryptography, and that's always a fun topic there. Cryptography, mission critical. You'll probably learn all about encryption. It'll probably cover all things like all the different types of ciphers, where you start learning that, like the Caesar cipher and items like that, and then work you all your way up to symmetric, asymmetric encryption, how that actually works on the internet. How do you break cryptography? How do you use cryptography so that no one can break it or makes it very difficult to break it? We're also going to look at access controls. How do you provide access to people in your apps? But that's also applicable to devices, network, and spaces. How do you grant access so that someone can get on a computer and open a file? And how do you deny other people access to that same file? You have someone who works in human resources in a company, you might not want them to have access to the blueprints to a product that's under development, right? Because they have no reason to be in that. That's not their sphere of influence. So how do you set those things up? So we're going to talk about that. And then last but not least, a really kind of like a very computer sciencey but fun type of attack will be SQL injections, where you inject some type of commands that you can access a database that's powered by the software known as SQL, or the language known as SQL. And if you don't know what some of these things are, that's okay. You're going to learn by the time you get to the end of the class, right? But what I want to stop here real quick, and I'm going to spend a little extra time. This video is going to go a little longer because it's an explainer video. But what I really want to have you understand is, even if you have no background in this, you can learn it. You don't need to have entirely a technological background to do these things. Understanding social engineering in Unit 1 is just how do you manipulate people. All the things that are in that chapter are really the same tactics that car salesmen use, okay, for instance. AI, very important to learn. If you don't know anything about AI just yet, it's time to get your feet in that pool and take a swim, because AI is going to be a very important thing going forward. So why not be on the end of learning that? Right? So if you are a person that's taking this but have no technical knowledge, don't be intimidated by that. There's plenty of resources out there. This is going to be one of them in the future, but there's plenty of other resources out there. Your teachers are going to be solid, and you're going to get through this. All right. The actual exam is going to be 2 hours and 10 minutes in duration. You are going to have 60 multiple check questions that are going to take 80 minutes, and that is scored by the machine, or that's scored electronically, okay? That is section 1. Then you're going to go on to section 2, which is going to be 50 minutes, and that is going to be your free response question. And that's going to be scored by people. They're going to have professional AP readers that will go through that and use a rubric to score that. So not too dissimilar from many other AP exams that are out there. The free response question is going to be pretty daunting. We'll do a video where there's an explainer of what that looks like, but the free response question is going to be multiple sections. There'll be a part A, part B, part C, from what I saw at least anyway. So that is what this test, where's my cursor? Here it is. That is what this test is going to look like. This just goes into the breakdown a little bit. The scope of the multiple choice question will cover all content from all 5 course units. It's evenly split between analyze, mitigate, and detect skills. And your target is just a broad understanding, as well as being able to identify what looks like a threat fairly rapidly. Okay? You only have 80 minutes for these 60 questions. You're going to have to really learn how to pace yourself well and be confident in your choices, deploy good test-taking skills, and all that other fun stuff. Section 2 goes a little deeper. It's going to focus very heavy on mitigating and detecting skills. It's going to require you to analyze simulated sources, like they might give you some log files or firewall settings or a set of policies. Where do you make the changes? Or here's a policy, how is that broken and what would you do to fix it? And if you fix it one way, would that break something else? You got to look at that. Obviously, it's a new AP exam, so we don't know how this is going to look entirely just yet. The longer this class goes, when this starts next school year, as the recording of this, it's April 28th, 2026. We'll have more information about what some of these questions look like, but try and be prepared for a little bit of something that looks like what I just said. This is just another kind of explainer about what that FRQ may look like. Well, they might give you a couple of different sources, and then they'll give you some things of what you need to do with them. Okay? What do you get out of taking AP Cyber? For one thing, cyber professionals hold elevated access. So what that means is that you'll learn the ethical and legal mandates of protecting personal info, health data, as well as financial data. And if you're able to do that, you separate yourself from other people applying for jobs. If you are already well-versed in the basics of doing this, you don't have to be an expert, but even getting an entry-level job, if you're able to speak to these things, then you're going to put yourself higher up there. Obviously, because it's an AP exam, getting college credit, it's the equivalent of one semester college and an introduction to cybersecurity class. You validate to anyone who you're speaking to, and it validates to higher education, that you have endured a rigorous academic class, you've met the standards, and that if you score well on the test and pass the exam, that you hold the same level of knowledge as someone that sat down for a semester and took an intro to cybersecurity class. And of course, since this is a career kickstart class, this class has been built by people who work in cybersecurity and information technology. NICE, and don't kill me, I don't remember what NICE stands for. I got to go look that up. But it's the NICE is like kind of like the cybersecurity group that assists education in generating the standards. And what's really good about that is that it's created by people in the industry that know cybersecurity and information technology best, so that when you go to an employer, they're going to have a level of confidence that not only that you went through a class, but what you learned was relevant to the modern workforce. That is mission critical, and that is really important. And that is the end of our video. So we've gone to a black screen. I'm going to talk for about 2 more minutes and just say thank you for sticking around if you made it to the end. We're going to have another video next, and that video is going to go over Unit 1, Topic 1.1, Understanding Social Engineering. I hope you enjoy your time here. Comment below if you enjoy these videos. Comment below if there's specific videos you'd like to see that might not be AP Cyber related, but related to some common knowledge that you would like to learn. And I'll do a quick, 10-minute explainer video and stuff like that on top of me going through the AP Cyber list. Some videos I'm going to make are going to be geared towards teachers. Some videos I'm going to make are going to be geared towards students. In the end of the day, I want everybody to succeed in AP Cyber. I love this content. I love this subject. I've been blessed and lucky to teach this now for the last 7 years in a career and technical ed program. Some of my students compete in the most rigorous competitions in the country. Some of our Cyber Patriot teams score some of the highest scores in the nation. Certainly some of the highest scores out here in my state of Nevada. We do really well in National Cyber League as well. The kids love it. The kids eat it up, and I want to share that passion with you all. So come along for the ride and watch me goof on the New York Jets a few more times as we go through some of these classes. I have a feeling they're going to be the target in some things that I explain. For you Jets fans out there, trust it's just coming from the bowels of the deepest of my heart, because I love the Jets. All right, enough of the funny stuff. We'll see you for the next video. Until then, take it easy.